Okay, Tracy. So it's been several years now since we started working together, and I feel like our health journeys are really kind of on a parallel track because you started just a couple months after I did. But tell me where you were in the fall of 2020 when we started all this and what you were struggling with before we started working together.
Yeah, such a good question because, like at the time, I would say it'd probably been about 12 or 15 year struggle of you know, gain some weight with each pregnancy. Decade later, here comes on another 10 pounds or so that you still didn't get off from your baby weights and all that other stuff. And then you throw in a worldwide shutdown, pandemic. And I feel like people either got really, really healthy during that time, or they kind of went the direction I did, which was get really, really unhealthy at that time. So I would say just a constant struggle of being willing to do anything, but for a short period of time and never quite being ready to adjust that into a lifestyle change. And so would repeatedly do a diet for 30 days or something, start an exercise routine for 6 months, but never quite get it to the point where it was something that I was willing to do every day and turn it into like how I lived my life. So I would say that was probably my biggest struggle.
How do you think those struggles and how do you think that the extra weight was really impacting your life?
Yeah, well, I mean, the extra weight was added to like this weird disconnect I had with my own body because the image of myself I had in my head never matched up with the image that I saw in the mirror. And that starts to mess around with your head a little bit, reduces your confidence in yourself and who you think you are. Um, and so definitely that played a major, um, you know, role in just like my body image and confidence levels. Um, and, just this sort of, I don't know, feeling of defeat of trying all these things over and over and over again, not really having any of those things stick or feel like there was continued success with those things. Which was interesting because food at the time, well, food always, like what you feed yourself is something you always have total control over because you can just say no or you can make something else or whatever, unlike so many other things about our day-to-day life that aren't in our control, just our ability to respond to that. So yeah, it definitely was just it was hard. It was hard.
What do you think was different about was it your mindset going into this program or was it the program itself that was different this time around?
Well, for me, I think one, you had shared about the program. I was at a really low point. And so um, timing worked out for me to just be like, I was at the bottom. So like I had only other choices was to like move up. So I was probably again like at my most unhealthy in my adult life I'd ever been. And so for me, I was at a point at that particular time of almost like a sense of desperation of I'm willing to try and do anything. The cool thing about the program and this program in particular is a couple weeks in, you start to realize that that's not actually what this program's about. The food part is made easy. The nutrition part is made easy because the hard part, like I said earlier, is like this mindset shifts that you need to work on to start embracing the new version of you, this new lifestyle you want to have for a lifetime's worth of, health and success based on what that means to you. Um, which I don't think I'd ever really gone into any of the other things I'd done in the past, really thinking about it that way.
So it's been almost 3 years or a little over 3 years since you started.
Yeah.
What were your initial results in terms of weight loss? And then what would you say are some of your biggest wins and accomplishments since then?
Oh, great question. So, um, like weight success is easy to share because that I was able to, lose 50 pounds in around 5 months, which at the time felt like a miracle because that was 20 pounds extra weight that I'd never been able to lose since after having my second baby. Um, and a lot of that again was due to just working on myself. And so I kind of think a lot about this program as being and access to our, the coaching community that we have and me being able to work specifically with you. I actually like to think of this was like life coaching with the side effect of weight loss at the time, because that was what I was working on specifically. Because there was so much emotional growth, emotional intelligence that kind of went in with that as I worked on myself and the things that really I struggled with, these like stories that we tell ourselves that we can't have or can have or whatever. Humans, we're really great at justifying our choices, whether they're good or bad or whatever, even though they're not always in our own best interests. And really, that was 5 months of a lot of personal growth to kind of come out the other end of feeling amazing physically, but also having so much more clarity in my mindset, uh, which is huge. And now 3 years later, I would say that's a constant practice. Like you don't arrive at a place of health and go, great, I don't have to work on that anymore. And that again is something that's just different than how I used to think about these things, that this is something that I think about every day. It's integrated into how we live our life as a couple and a family. But again, some of the hugest shifts for me were in my ability to, really personal growth to be where I am right now. Um, yeah.
Do you think the way you think about it every day is different though? Because I know for me, it is more top of mind, but not necessarily in a negative way, because it's not like it's weighing me down of, oh, I have to do this, I have to lose weight, or I can't eat that. It's more of a, I guess, an empowering mindset versus a really deflating one.
Yeah, I kind of think of it as decision fatigue. Like before, when I'd work on something like this, it just felt like I had to make these decisions all day, all the time. And now it's almost freeing because I don't have to make that decision. I know what I want to eat, I know what I want to be doing. Those are the groceries that we buy. And so it isn't a decision like that. It's not as hard to make those decisions because it just is habitual now about how we do what we do every day, which makes that so much easier. And not and coming from a space of abundance of the quality of life that I have versus this this handful of food that I probably don't eat on as regular a basis as I did. Yeah, so I kind of think of it as like almost like freedom from some of that because you don't have to make as many decisions about those things because it just is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you also decided to start coaching a couple of months into your journey. What has that done for you, do you think, in the last couple of years?
Wow. Well, I mean, it's interesting about coaching because at the time I had a lot going on. Who doesn't, right? I was working, I was managing kids at home, kids doing college from home. Because again, it was like, part of the shutdown time and um, it was just a lot. It was just a lot. And but I really felt compelled to sort of give this gift forward, right? Share this with the people that I know that had been struggling the same number of years I had because we'd been trying to do all this stuff together. So it kind of felt like a priority for me to be able to share that out with my family and friends. And then as I started coaching, again, in the beginning, it was like, oh, I want to help a couple of people. I want to make sure that they know that this is available for them. But again, kind of in that short amount of time, 2 or 3 months into coaching, you realize how much I was gaining out of being a coach, how much that helped me stay on task and top of mind for what I wanted to be working on at the time. Um, I tell my clients all the time, I feel like I get more value from our calls together and our time together, than I feel like I can give back to them, because they provide so much of what I'm yearning. Um, Being able to like do something of value back to a person, and from a place of love and service that I need in my everyday life. And so it really, coaching fulfills me in a way I never really thought possible, especially when I first started. And so, yeah, very fulfilling.
So I remember when you decided that you wanted to start coaching, but the idea of sharing your story publicly on social media was not your most favorite thought about doing that. What would you say to somebody that, has thought, okay, yeah, maybe I could help some people. And yes, I know some people that this could be helpful for, but it's just not really my thing. And I just don't really want to share my life publicly like that.
Oh, I can totally relate to that, because before I started coaching, everything on my social media really had to do with work. And so I shared a lot about work stuff, but not really about my personal life. Um, but again, what I realized once I put it out there and part of that, I think, is fear that you're going to be judged. You're going to be, um, that people are going to say horrible things. I don't know what, again, stories we tell ourselves in our head. And the reality is, when I started sharing that out there, so many people were so supportive of that and celebratory of what I was experiencing, which again, I didn't realize I needed that. If, you know, um, and so being able to share that again, like, still can be a private person, but you can share those things about yourself that add value back to somebody else. Because I know personally, I'm not the only one struggling with these things. I'm not the only mom who has baby weight that like isn't off, even though your baby was what mine was 18 at the time. So it wasn't baby weight. It was just 18 years of struggling with my weight. um, and so what I realized very shortly after being able to share those things specifically about what that journey was for me with my health, it helped so many other people to be inspired to do that for themselves, whether they did this program or another program, or they shared the things that were working with them. I mean, that was awesome. And it continues even now, like being able to add value back to the people I'm connected to on social media, whether it's something about, again, health, exercise, personal growth. I talk about sleep sometimes, because that's something that like my family struggles with, having really quality sleep. Um, Knowing that there's at least one person out there who's reading it and sees it, and it might help them, or feel like they're not unique in that, feeling alone in that struggle, that they're not the only person experiencing those things. That feels amazing. So being able to share that publicly in a way that I feel comfortable with, while still adding value to the people I'm connected with. I get that. I get that hesitancy, but also it's so cool, because all of us have read a post or seen a photo that really impacted us. And if that person would have been too private to share, then that wouldn't have been something that we had access to. So kind of think of it that way.
So what would you say, or what do you say when someone's thinking they maybe need to make a change in their own health, or thinking, okay, maybe this is something that could help me, add another source of income for my family. Um, what would you say to somebody that's considering either or both of those things?
Well, I mean, I love coaching for this company. I love coaching this program because there's so many variations that help support people. Um, but it has to come from a place of serving others. Like this is a labor of love, I guess you could say, in serving your clients. So if that is something that a person finds valuable, if that's something that is that they're looking for in their life, adding value back to others, I think what a great fit. Uh, and there's always time. Like find the busiest person, ask them to do a task, they'll get it done because they know exactly when and where they're able to do that. So whether that person is currently, have an extremely full calendar or schedule, or for those entering different stages of their life, like they've had a career and now they're kind of shifting over to something else. If that's something that would give value back to them, I think it'd be a great fit. Young moms, empty nesters like me. Yeah, I mean, it's been a cool experience. So I would think if anybody's interested in that, um, it's been great. Super support, lots of resources, um, and just a really great sense of community, um, for the coaches that work for this program. Yeah.
Anything else you want to share today?
No, I mean, it's been a cool thing for people who know us in particular. Like in our professional lives, we've worked together before. And then we weren't together, right? Like I had stepped off and started doing some other things, and you moved away, started working in a different capacity. It's also been cool to reconnect through this in a totally different way, because we still get to work together, but changing people's lives. It's very cool.
And I think that's one thing, because I've lived in so many different places in the past, 20 years. That for me has been a really fun thing, to be able to reconnect with people from all different parts of my life, because I physically don't live near them anymore, but I can kind of have a reason to reconnect with them and keep in touch with them again. So that's definitely a fun side effect as well. So
Yeah. And while I'm kind of you're kind of got like little kids at home, and I'm living the opposite end where, we're not having kids at home. Our adult kids are settling into their new lives, and us transitioning from being parents in that stage and then parenting in this next stage. It's also cool because there is that sense of physical freedom of not being tied to a space and place of where you work. Because I've coached all across the United States. Every time we're traveling for family or business or whatever, I still get to keep my coaching going. And I have clients across the United States, which is also cool. So it's been a cool way to reconnect with friends from where I grew up, plus people that I don't get to see every day because, again, our kids were our conduit and now our kids are adults. So it's been, yeah, I see kind of this as being my sort of like, quote, retirement. I can see myself doing this for decades to come. So,
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for introducing me to this and being a great mentor and coach for me for both my health and my business. And like I said, kind of like in life, because that's sort of what we do here too.